Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Baptiste, and this is my webinar about developmental games for children with autism and giving you some guidance and tips on how to do any games you might already be doing. All right. So in 2010, just to quickly introduce myself, I started working with children with autism, and that means giving them exercises that I was hoping that they would be doing in their families, doing each day. Uh, Taking somewhere around 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day to do various exercises and to do them in the long term because helping somebody make progress, helping them getting more organized in their brain, more integrated does take time. And I usually recommend people do these exercises for a whole year, and some families do it much longer than that. All right. So I said I started in 2010, and I've been working in the Czech Republic and nearly always working with children who had autism or were children who had some kind of delayed development, were not talking, and so on. All right. While during our time here, because I work with my wife, the pair of us had our two introduction courses accredited by the Czech Ministry for Education. So, hooray, hooray for them. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into games, and maybe the first one I want to start with is one that's sort of typical for a lot of people to do, and that's tickling. And my advice basically is to be a bit cautious about tickling, or maybe even stop doing it. So for all of you that love doing tickling, I'm sorry. Maybe you're going to keep going with it anyway, and it's entirely possible that it's your child loves it and it works really well for you. So that's great, and I respect that. My caution around tickling is how many of us can remember when we were little being tickled, and even if we were laughing a lot, we were not liking it. And I'm suspecting if you ask around your friends, you'll probably find a lot of them will say, yeah, I didn't really like it, or they can remember one episode at least of tickling. Tickling is very stimulating for the nervous system, but it's not something that I see as helpful to the nervous system. It's not because usually I'm doing, controlled motions, maybe clapping and drinking with a straw and being able to do it steadily and wanting to do it and so on. So if you like to tickle your child and they come asking for it and you're showing you that they want it, then I think that's totally fine. Do that and just have it as part of your connections and fun that you have together. And I think that that's totally fine. But in terms of doing things that it's going to help development, then I would say do focus on other things, leave time for other things as well. So I hope that's okay. I hope I'm not suddenly going to get a lot of people upset about that they love tickling and what am I talking about? Okay. One key thing that I like to say, or actually a colleague of mine said, her name is Margot, she's great. She says, focus on the fun. And that might sound strange because I'm talking about games, but it's also easy, I think, that we can hear about, oh, this game is good or that game is good, or we can find on YouTube lots and lots of developmental games for minor motor skills and gross motor skills. A lot of them are going to be really great. Maybe all of them are really great. Um, the question is always, does it suit your child? And then the fun piece that I'm talking about, does it suit their nervous system? Like they can do it and they can do it successfully and feel good about doing it, and that it's interesting for them. It is genuinely fun for them because otherwise, I feel it's very easy for many of us adults to feel we should do something for children because we heard it's good or we believe it's good or it's good for development. So come on, Paul said it's good for that, so you should really do it. And I think that's not likely to work anywhere near as effectively as picking out what your child does like. So if I give you some suggestions that are new to you, or you go and look up games on YouTube, or you talk to somebody a professional, let's say, who you know, and they give you ideas of developmental games, that's all brilliant. Go home, maybe do it on yourself, do it on other children, do it on your husband, whoever, Um, See if your child's going to be interested, see if they're going to be ready to join in and that they're showing you that they are ready for it. I don't know about you, but many times the children with autism that I work with, they can be cautious about things, but if you do it on somebody else and they get a chance to see it, maybe even if you do it once a day for a week or a couple of weeks, and maybe it takes them some time to process it and then after that time they may be then ready to give something a try. All right. Um, let me then jump on to the next thing. One key area of what, maybe it's not typical of what you might think of as games as such, but it's typical play that can be good for development is what I call two-handed toys or two-handed games. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's an example. So this is son of Bendy Man, and the reason why he's a two-handed toy is because you kind of likely, I imagine, people to hold him with one hand and manipulate him, twist him with the other hand. And the reason why that's good is because if we're using both our hands, then we are using both sides of our brain. Okay, so the Bendy Man is like one type of toy. I'm not trying to sell him. I don't have any connections with any toys per se. All right, so anything that's sort of similar to him where you use two hands, that can be useful. Let me just show you a few more of the ideas here. I think maybe it's a snake, so it's a bit unpleasant for people. This is maybe a little tricky to see, but when the snake is on the ground, he sort of moves a little bit. So it's got you just pull him down, and then I don't know if you can hear this, but it's got a buzz and it's got a little vibration that works with it, and that could be pleasant for some people. But again, you need two hands to operate it. So if you're interested in the bendy man as a child, then you just naturally are likely to use two hands, but no one's trying to push you into doing some therapy. You just want to do it yourself, and then you can do it. You do it as long as you're interested in doing it. So it hopefully is the right length for you to stimulate you, but not overstimulate you, and so on. So getting toys that really suit somebody can be great therapy as such, right? So that's another one. Um, Let me show you this now. They're not very high tech, these things, are they? This is just what I love to get. Things that just work, are simple. We don't have to spend lots of money on them. So as you can see, it just kind of looks like a rocket. Maybe you can guess already by looking at the bottom piece here that sort of squashes up that you just do that and it flies away. So um, again, it's a question, has your child got the sort of coordination and so on to do any of these things that I am showing you? This one you have to give it a bit of a bash, and so maybe for a while you have to do it and let your child watch, or then they will hold it and you'll bash it, or some sort of coordination or cooperation between you. Um, I'm just giving you out ideas. You pick whatever suits you and your family and your child. I remember one time a few years ago, just to give you another example. Um, one young boy that I was working with who had autism, the thing that really got his attention and really helped him start using his two hands in a coordinated way, because he wasn't doing it at all before, was the parents' key to their car. So this key, it had the fob, and then the key would fold down inside it, if you've ever seen a key that does that. And then on the side of the fob, there was a little metal button that you would press, and the key would pop out again. And this was just what caught his interest. So whatever captures your interest, right? Great, let's use that. So it was quite tricky for him to hold it and then fold it down, but he really liked the click and pop out. It did take him maybe, I don't know, a minute or two just trying to work it out for himself and how much pressure he had to put in to get it to close. The point is that it worked and he thought this was interesting and funny and everything. So that was something that was helping him use the two sides of his brain to make a new connection. This one is probably, I want to say, a little bit more advanced. It's certainly a bit advanced for many of the youngsters that I work with, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, and maybe your youngster can manage this already. So you can maybe see already that it's got a little wind up thing here. I just put that a bit more closely. It's got a little wind up thing. So the idea is, again, you have to use two hands. One hand is holding, and then this one is going to wind it up, and then you put it down on the ground and it scoots along. Okay. So that might take more very fine motor control, but it's another possibility. This is another one now that's not very high tech or expensive looking, so do brace yourself. And normally I wouldn't be a person that would be much interested in like cheap plastic toys. But anyway, there's this. Again, just from looking at it, you probably will guess what's going to happen with it. Again, one hand is holding and the other hand is pulling. You have to pull it reasonably firmly to get the top to fly off like that. Okay, so again, it might be something that your child cannot do now, perhaps, and you're just going to show it to them, and maybe in time they will start holding it, and then you do the pulling, or you'll work it out between the two of you. So that's really good, that one, not only for the two-handed coordination, and your child watching you, I didn't mention, but that is also can be really useful from the mental rehearsal that the mirror neurons that we have in our brains processing and understanding what you're doing just because they're watching and listening and so on. So it can be good for that. And then the other piece for that particular toy is I'm think very, very often, I can't remember that I've ever seen a child like not look at it when it's flying away. They may not be able to hold their gaze on it for very long, but it's just naturally interesting. And as they're looking as it's flying, then that can be really good a little bit for the eye convergence because maybe it'll quickly be some distance away from them, but maybe mainly just for tracking. So for the eyes following a moving thing, and the ability of the eyes to do that is then very helpful for if they're watching a person that's moving or they are at some point, hopefully in the future, learning to write or to draw and so on, because now they have to watch like their hand moving or their pencil moving and so on. So I think it's a useful thing, but it's like a no pressure way of working on the eyes, working on the two hands, coordinating their movements and together. And no pressure, what I mean by that is not trying to do drills of do this exercise and do it 10 times a day and everything else, but just it will be their natural motivation for themselves to want to do it, to find it interesting. Okay, so I've got one more here to show you. It's a different type of toy as such. And again, I think many people know this, but I don't know how many exactly. And so it's like it's a sort of wooden, it's supposed to be a loaf of bread, and you can see there's gaps in there, and the gaps have got a little Velcro in them so that the bread sticks together. We've got a little breadboard here. And got a little sort of wooden knife that's not sharp at all, of course. And then you can practice doing some cutting with that, some slicing. So again, it's going to be a two-hand thing. Maybe one hand's holding the bread and then the other hand is operating the knife. I did have one child I was working with, and the one thing that he loved doing was doing cooking and being in the kitchen with his mum. So that's not a game really, but it was just something that caught his interest. So even if it's not a game like it's fun, like ha ha ha, when I play, but it's just something that's interesting for me and captures my attention, then great. Do things like that because I think in this boy's case, working with the flour, for example, he was very sensitive to touch on his hands And he didn't like working with the flower. It wasn't comfortable, but he could have a little towel there and he would do something with the flower and then he could wipe it off quickly when he was ready. But he wanted to do it. He was motivated, and that's the thing that makes the difference. All right, just have a little sip of water. Okay, I'm going to tell you about some more different sort of types of games now, but I don't have them to show you because these are physical games that you might do with your child. So I think many parents already just do this intuitively. They might pick up their child, put their child down. They might have an indoor trampoline and have their child jump on that trampoline. And if their child's not quite steady enough on their own jumping, then the parent might hold their hands or help them bounce even higher when they're on there. So that can be good and useful. It can really help a person feel their own body. So in my work, I call that proprioception, being aware of the body in space, but specifically now it might be the jumping on a trampoline might have lots of information into the body. And if somebody doesn't have that proprioception well organized, then doing things like jumping can be sort of quite calming, can be soothing emotions and so on. All right. If your child is small enough and if you are strong enough and don't have any difficulties, let's say with your back and so on, then another type of game can be just holding your child and maybe tipping with them in different directions, maybe doing some rotating around with them and so on. Um, what I would say about that, and with all the games really, is that the body can show us when we've had enough of something. So it can show us, like a child can show us, even if they're not talking, in pretty usual ways, like wriggle a bit or push you away and so on. And we'll maybe have all kinds of sounds that they might make, even if they're not talking, that you know very well what that means and so on. But on top of that, very typical with this holding a child and tipping them and so on. If it's too much for their nervous system, then they might see the ears go red. So it's possible that somebody can be liking something and want to do it again, but if they have red ears, I would say it's good to take a break. And it might be that just even, let's say, 10, 20 seconds as a break might well be enough that their nervous system sort of processes what you've just done and their ears stop being red, and then maybe you can just do it again. Okay. But really good not to overstimulate somebody. So stopping it when they have red ears is I would strongly recommend that. I think that's a good idea. So it because it can be with physical movements like this when the head is moving a lot, it can be really easy to overstimulate somebody. It can be fun, 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 and then the next moment, oh, it's too much. So when I'm playing with children as part of my work, then what I might do is I might just do one rotation and then stop. I might even put them down on the ground, and that gives them a chance to walk away if they feel like they didn't like that so much and so on, and show me that they've had enough. Or it gives also a chance for me just to look at them and see, oh, have they had any red ears or are they looking kind of tense or whatever it might be. And if they're not doing that, again, I can put out my hands to them as a sign to offer doing it again. So you can, if you're not sure how much your child likes all these things, or if they have red ears, or when in the process they might get red ears, then doing it little chunk by little chunk in terms of time can be a useful way to work out, oh, where is their limit? Can I do 15 seconds of this or 30 seconds of this? How much do they like? And maybe they love it lots and they want to do it lots and lots and lots. And if they're looking for it and showing you that they want it and they're not having any signs, like they're not holding their breath, no sort of tensing up of the body, no red ears and so on, then do go ahead and, you know, give them plenty. And because in that playing, not only is that kind of movement really good stimulation for the inner ear, the vestibular system, but it's really good for many other things. So, for example, the inner ear connects with the muscles of the eyes so that in order, when my head moves around and my brain gets told about that movement by the inner ear vestibular system, by the vestibular apparatus, I should say, to be really precise, the brain takes that information and tells my eyes. And that can be really helpful because now that means I can turn my head, but I can stay looking where I want to be looking. And I don't even have to think about it. It's just kind of automatic. We hope it's automatic. Okay. All right. So, physical games like that can be a lot of fun, and people have different variations of that. So, they might hold their child's hands, and their child kind of walks up them and they tip over or something. In general, all of those things can be really helpful and really useful. You might just need to, like, for example, imagine that your child really likes one of these games, but they get red ears after 15 seconds. Let's imagine that's the scenario. So you might want to do it for 15 seconds. You might want to tell your child in advance, I'm only going to do it for 15 seconds because I saw that the ears were getting red and that just looks like it's right. And then we'll take a break. So you might do that, do 15 seconds, then take a break, and it might just be really short, like I said, or it might be a couple of minutes, or you just might come back to it later in the day. And you might just do it multiple times across the day if you've got that kind of time and energy. Uh, but if your child wants to do these things, then it can be like great therapy for them, stimulating their growth, their development, and the speed of their learning in general. Okay. All right. So the one aspect is we're talking about connecting the two sides of the brain because we're using two-handed toys. And then this is another thing here where we're talking about stimulating the inner ear, the vestibular system, and how it supports muscle tone. Are they able to hold their body in a good posture and so on? Are they able to do things and not get tired really quickly? So even if they're passive because they're being held and tipped, it can still help their energy and their stamina in future. All right. Other classic ones might be doing a wheelbarrow, where you probably know this, or where you hold a child's ankles and they walk on their hands. And what I very, very often, if not always, in fact, say to parents is, I would count how many steps they do, and at some point, if they kind of flop a little bit, think, oh, how many steps was that? And even if you're not quite sure, you might be able to estimate it, and you might think, well, that was 7 steps thereabouts. Um, if 7 is a point where their body kind of flops and has a little like collapses, then if you know that, then that means in future, if you roughly every time you do this wheelbarrow with them, you might do count 5 or 6 and then stop. So that's like another big principle or involved in my work is avoiding the overstimulating, which can be easy to do. So if you stick to 5 or 6, then hopefully you're in a nice safe zone because you know that the 7 is usually the point when they flop. Um, and that might vary a little bit from day to day about, how energetic are they feeling and so on. All right. So count the steps and see if you can get it to stay easy and comfortable and avoid flopping and so on. Okay. Another one that many parents will do is doing wrestling. So this is like play wrestling. Um, a parent might just do this with their child, roll around on the bed and so on. Um, Maybe do it with more than one child at a time. So this again is different from a developmental point of view, different part of the nervous system here this can be useful for. Yes, it's still the body moving, therefore the head's moving, so stimulation for the inner ear, which can be really great as long as it's not overstimulating. But the other part is coming back to proprioception in the body that I was talking about, let's say with the trampoline, because they've got their own body weight on the bed as they're moving, and as they roll around on the bed, they're going to feel their weight on different parts of their body. And now they're wrestling with somebody else, and so that's the contact with somebody else uh, is also going to give them input to their body. So almost all the children probably that I work with are looking for some amount of proprioception stimulation. Might just be more, many children might like more of a gentle contact, stroking and so on, or gentle squeezes of some description, and others that like really strong input to their body, like maybe a parent can even lie on them, lie on their legs or something. Uh, So it's really important, I'm sure as you will agree, to just do the things that your child likes and don't just do things because you heard somebody or you read about something on Facebook, let's say, that, oh, this is good for children with autism. I'll always sort of react to that because obviously every child just can be so different. All right. So if you have never tried out wrestling with your child in some form, even if it's like slow motion wrestling or I don't know what, just some different version of it. It doesn't have to be physical, and you can have particular rules for it, or you can set a time limit on it, all these things to try and really make it work for you and your child. Okay. Um, Another one that's at least very popular in our playroom where we work with children is either a small gym ball, because the gym balls that people are used to are, oh, they're about this kind of size, I think, right? Like maybe 80 centimeters, I'm not quite sure now, in diameter across. And we have one that's about this size. And so even if lots of the kids we work with are like 3, 4, 5 years old, it's it's of a size, this ball, that they can stand and like put their tummy on it and roll themselves backwards and forwards. Okay. And the reason why I like that is because the size that it is compared to their body is if they roll too far forwards, they're able to put their hands down easily onto the floor. And these big gym balls are just too big for that. In order for them to be on top of the ball and be kind of rocked there and back, somebody else would have to help them do that, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. But the advantage of the ball that's a smaller version of a gym ball is that the child can then do this themselves, or they don't always need a parent, and they can do as much of it as they want or as little of it as they want. And they can, if this is the ball, they can sort of let their body go all the way along as they roll themselves along the body. So again, movement, good for the inner ear, vestibular system, vestibular apparatus in the inner ear, really good for feeling the weight on their body, for their sense of proprioception, the map of the body, some people call it. And a different version of this is, I've heard called a peanut ball. It's like a double ball that's sort of connected in the middle. So but it's got this dip in the middle. And again, that the height of that dip is such that the youngsters that I work with, they can sit on it comfortably and have it under control, or they can lie on it and roll it and so on. So that often works. Okay. And it's another thing that not just that I like it, but that it's usually not that hard to get hold of it, and it doesn't usually. I don't believe that they cost a lot of money to get hold of. All right, a whole different category of games now can be rhythmic games. This just means clapping, giving five, giving 10, slapping, doing some slaps on their lap. I'm showing alternating slaps, could be slapping like this. Basically, any kind of version of doing something that's rhythmic. Um, Many of the youngsters that I work with, they are not able to do this. They're not able to hold a rhythm. I totally get that. And I'm doing exercises with them to hopefully help them learn how to have a rhythm because, again, we're connecting the two sides of the brain when we're using the two hands in different ways. And because doing that, connecting the two sides of the brain is a really key element to help somebody's development so that the brain is ready, much more ready to learn to talk. So if you're new to any work like that I do, you might now be getting the picture that I don't help children with autism by teaching them things. I don't teach them how to read and write and so on and so on. I just do things that is helping their general brain-body connection and their general development so that they find it easier to progress and blossom and learn new things, and they can learn new things faster. All right, so any kind of rhythmic things can be good. Um, Another thing that can be good is this is at least my opinion. It's something in the last, I don't know, year, maybe a bit more, that I've been hearing more and more people on YouTube, doctors and so on, talk about, and that's being a little bit out of breath every day. So just like, for us adults, we might get recommended to have a certain amount of um, moderate to vigorous exercise each day, keep the body all healthy. These things also have apparently really big and useful effects on the brain. That might just be obvious in some forms, like we might see that we or other people sleep better when they've had some vigorous exercise. But I also think it's really good for the brain, helping us with maybe emotions, helping us with potentially with anxiety. And if it helps us sleep better, well, that's great because it seems in the last years that we've been learning how much the brain kind of detoxes at night when we're sleeping and when we're sleeping well, maybe more in the deep sleep as I understand it. So if that's right, if I do more exercise and now I sleep better, then the brain is just more ready the next day to fresh and ready to learn new things. But also, of course, when we sleep well, there's a process there that helps us cement our learning. So whatever we've been doing recently, if we have good sleep, then it can help speed up our learning and development just from sleeping. All right. Um, I've said it already, but I'm just going to say it again, is play the games that your child likes to play or play with the toys that your child likes. If can you do it together with them all the time? Do they like to do it on their own? But letting your child play the games they like to play. And if you can do what I call daily therapeutic play with them, then even better. So that might mean you have 10 minutes or 20 minutes in a day and you turn off your phone, or you're able to, if you've got other kids, maybe somebody else can look after them just for a short time and you focus full on 100% with your child and you do all the things that they love to do. And maybe you're super busy the rest of the day, as a lot of people are. I get that. But just being able to offer them at least a few minutes each day of this play and shared attention and probably practicing eye contact and eye tracking as they're maybe watching a toy that flies and so on, and giving stimulation to the body and to the inner ear and so on and so on. All of these things might be things you're doing already. They might just be intuitive things. And I'm just saying, yes, that's great. Keep going with those things or try some of these things out if you've not been doing so much of it up until now. All right. I just want to mention again the stop signs. These stop signs were any signals, maybe non-verbal signals or noises that your child's had enough. Do keep paying attention to all of those. The red ears I mentioned, and maybe holding the breath. Maybe it's hard to notice that, but you might notice it when they then let go of it, and you might hear a sigh, and that might indicate that. Or another thing that's a stop sign is when the body might flop. So maybe you notice your child's been sitting up straight for a bit and they might suddenly kind of flop. Or maybe they're doing some clapping with you and suddenly the hands are kind of getting lower and lower and lower. That, in my opinion at least, that's the moment to stop. We can think, oh, it's good for you. Come on, do some more. And I wouldn't do that. If you notice you can do that and your child happily does some more, then fair enough. But nearly always, I'm looking for people to stop at that point. Even if your child can do some more and you've got that experience, I would say this can be really helpful. How does it hurt to stop for a minute? And muscle tone and the stamina in the body can usually very, very quickly recover, and then just do some more a minute later. So what I'm saying is, if a minute is too much for your child and they've flopped already earlier, maybe at 30 seconds or 40 seconds, then a minute might not be anywhere near as helpful as doing two lots of 30 seconds with a gap in the middle. Okay? All right. So I hope that bit's clear what I'm talking about there. All right. Very, very good. I think that's plenty for me for now. Thank you so much if you've watched this all the way through to the end. And do be in touch if you have any comments and questions. Um, just in case you are interested, from next year, I have some spaces to have one or two new families. So if you start getting interested in working with me, then be in touch and we can have a free sort of chat together to talk about your child and see if that's going to interest you in doing a program with me. Or you might watch, so I've got some short videos, very often 4 or 5 minute videos that are on Facebook. And if you see my name down the bottom here, Paul Neurodevelopment. That's my business page on Facebook, and on there you'll find these videos, and you get more of a sense of the work that I do. All right, thanks very much for watching, and best of luck with everything you're doing with your child. Take care for now. Bye bye.